Right, everyone. We're just about a minute over the hour, so we still have a few people jumping in, but let's go ahead and get started with our transcripts training today for the CVC Exchange. First, we'll begin with some introductions, so I'll kick it off. My name is Mackenzie Johnson, and I'm the Platform Management and Support Supervisor for the CVC Exchange. And today we are also joined by Mike Vogt. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mike Vogt. I'm the director for IT for CVC.
Great. Thanks, Mike. We will also have our partner from Parchment joining us as well for questions at the end. So we'll turn time over to them as well. But for kicking off today, let's go ahead and talk about transcripts for the CVC Exchange. The topics that we would like to cover today are outlined here. First, we are going to go through a student journey video. Some of you may have already seen this in other trainings we've done or in recent implementations, but we'll just kind of speed through that video. So again, you can see the student side. And then we're going to actually dive into transcripts information for admin staff and students and seeing that journey by looking at the admin dashboard. So many of our colleges, which we'll see throughout the presentation, have been using the admin dashboard for transcripts and for transcript information, but now we've added a term transcript report functionality that we're going to review as well. And then, of course, time for support and questions. And so the other thing I wanted to add, again, as folks are joining today, that as you have additional questions, feel free to throw those in the chat and we will either address those live or get back to you in the chat with those. So again, thanks for joining, and let's go ahead and dive into that student journey video. So with this video, there is no audio that needs to be shared. And like I said, we are going to kind of skip through a little bit for those of you that have already seen this before, but again, also just seeing that student side. So the student begins by visiting cvc.edu, where there are resources here the student can search, but ultimately we direct them here to log in. When the student selects login, after reviewing these resources, they're shown this page where they're selecting whether they currently attend a California Community College or they do not. If they do not currently attend, they will need to use CCC Apply after finding courses maybe that they're interested in through the exchange. They will then use CCC Apply to actually apply and register directly with that college. If they are currently enrolled, then they will select their college from this drop-down list here, as you can see. And then they'll actually log in with those home college credentials to be shown their platform here. This is the student facing dashboard for the CVC Exchange. Again, many of you may be familiar with this. The components that we'd like to point out is that the dashboard and class schedule do show different options for students for payment, for drop, and things like that. So just also a reminder that there are different options here for students to view what they are currently enrolled in, as well as previous courses like dropped and withdrawn courses within the term. Students can also access profile information. So often students will ask, what is my SIS ID for this teaching college that I'm taking this course through, especially when it comes to transcripts. They may be asking for that information, and they can find that in their profile if they select profile. Let me see if I can, just a quick part here, where they scroll down, they're given their name, email, CCC ID, and then all of the teaching college SIS IDs that they may need that are associated with their account. That student is now, again, logged in. They've viewed their profile. They have viewed their dashboard. They're not currently enrolled in any courses. So this student is actually going to select search for courses. And they're brought to this page where, again, they've already authenticated through their home college here with Napa Valley. And so now they can use the search functionality here to determine how they want to find a course. Our default is keyword, but they can select these other options. Once the student selects search, they are shown certainly course options here, as well as additional filter options. These are really important just to note for students and admins that may be using this to help students is that we do have a lot of these filters preset based on if there are seats available in the course, if the course is actually available for registration, meaning that it has an upcoming course start date, right? We don't want to show courses to students that started back in August because those are no longer available for registration. So viewing those filters is very helpful. But in this case, if a student finds a course that they want to select here, they can click on the course where they're shown more details about the course, the tuition and fees, transfer information based on where they've logged in at their home college. They can then view available sections and select add class. They select through these consents, which you are also welcome to view and read. The student then completes the enrollment form, the abbreviated enrollment form, which validates their address, potentially has them select residency if their home college does not have a certain integration with our team at that point. So the student will select the residency and the home college will verify in this case, but often residency is pulled in from implementation work that our team has done with the colleges. After the student enters this information, we also filter out dual enrollment and other students who are not eligible to use the CVC Exchange, like international students. And then the student is taken through the registration process, enrollment, creating a record at the teaching college, and then registration, actually putting them into the course. And then the student is moved to this congratulations page here, where the course they selected, they're shown their ID at the teaching college, as well as other resources. So this is where disabled student programs and services, veterans, payment information, financial aid, CCPG, etc., is all shown to the student here. So the student can navigate through these options as needed. So again, CCPG information, financial aid requests, the student can select there. Then if the student does go back to their dashboard, they can now see that they have enrolled in this course. They have options to then navigate to the course details, congratulations page that we just viewed, or go directly to a link to pay now with a credit card using the CVC Exchange, which we then just send that payment directly to the teaching college. We don't hold on to any of that. We're connected to the payment processor at the teaching college. This is also where the student can drop the course, and then a reminder that they're accessing that course through their home college Canvas account. All right, that is a quick overview of that student dashboard, student journey video. So I wanted to pause to see if there were any questions or things that we wanted to address in that video before we move into looking, okay, now this course has ended, what's the transcript information? Great. Okay, so let's dive back into our slides and again, continue adding questions to the chat or let us know if there's anything we need to answer live here today. So for transcript information for staff and administrators, what we ultimately want to direct everyone to is this overview page. And again, we will be sharing this recording, these slides, and these links, which are already available to all of you. Whoops. This link here for an overview of transcripts will take you to this page on our website where you can learn exactly what the CVC process is for processing transcripts, but also the links and training materials that we are going to review can also be accessed here, whether that is the frequently asked questions, the guide we're going to go through, as well as the matrices that we will review for both home colleges and teaching colleges. But overall, there are two components to sending and receiving. So let's talk about those two components, and then we'll talk about how our colleges are essentially classified in those two areas and how you can find that information for yourself. So in the sending aspect of sending transcripts, the CVC did launch automated transcript sending in August 2025 for colleges that use Parchment as that transcript vendor. So if you are working with Parchment, this is free to colleges and students for those transcripts to say, okay, the course has ended 3 weeks from that course. We are going to facilitate that transcript sending without the student or the college needing to do that. However, some colleges are not using Parchment, so we still have a handful of colleges that are having to manually send those transcripts. And so we often get questions about, okay, well, which colleges are we part of that college? Do we need to send manually? Does this other college need to do that? And so we actually created a matrix, which again, you can find on our website as well as linked here. And what this tells you is how a certain college is sending their transcripts. Are they automatic with Parchment or are they set up with a manual process? And then it also tells you when to expect those transcripts. And the reason why we added this is because some colleges, for example, if they are on a manual process, they may only be sending transcripts at the end of a term, even though there are certain end dates throughout the term. They may only process and send those transcripts for CVC students at the end of the full summer, fall, spring terms. However, we also have colleges that are automatic with Parchment, and those colleges we are able to detect 3 weeks from the end of the course date to automatically facilitate that sending. So that's why we can say 3 weeks from the end of the course versus 3 weeks from the end of the term. So sometimes that is helpful. You can search by college here and find that information, but that is where kind of our sending is divided, is into that automatic and manual. For receiving, again, all of our colleges that are um, sending transcripts also have to remember to receive the transcripts from their students that may have registered at other colleges and now are coming back with those transcripts. So the home colleges need to process and evaluate those transcripts for CVC students because they may expire after 30 days if they're not opened or downloaded or moved through your processes. Now, receiving can be a little bit tricky as far as how your college decides to receive transcripts. Again, we'll show the matrix here, but I just want to preface this with we don't necessarily need every college to know how every college receives their transcripts. However, we do occasionally get questions if we have a one-off transcript or we're missing a transcript. What we decided to do with our vendor parchment is put together, again, a different matrix here that will show you how colleges are receiving transcripts. So I'm going to click on this, but please don't be overwhelmed. And if we access this here, this is where you can go find how these different colleges will receive transcripts. So to read it, again, we've got our home colleges across, apologies, home college across the top and the teaching college down here across the side. Find where they intersect, and that is how that transcript will be received. Questions on those two components. Again, this is kind of a generic overview and understanding how the CVC classifies our colleges and the resources that are available for that. But we also want to get into actually how do we mark these transcripts as sent? Where are these reports? Where are these students? So that's what we're going to get to next. Any questions, Mike? Anything from the chat or anything we need to review?
There's a couple questions in chat and then one in Q&A. I've got to check that, Charmaine. I thought you guys were on the automated transcript sending, and if you are, then we're sending at the end of 3 weeks. So from the course, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But let me just double check that to confirm on Antelope Valley. But from the chat, there's a couple questions around, do home colleges, if the student, if is coming from a home college that does not participate in CVC, and there's still, I think, six or seven that they're not home colleges, do they still appear in the drop-down menu when they select a home college? The answer is they do not appear in the drop-down menu from the authentication page, but they do still appear in the drop-down menu from the search page because we didn't want to, just because their home college isn't participating, we didn't want to necessarily exclude those students from being able to search for classes. They just couldn't cross enroll into those classes. So they can still search because we're still using the assist data and the CID data, which still
Absolutely.
maps to that home college, whether they participate or not. So they can search and kind of see what transfers, what counts for an assist equivalency or a CID equivalency, but they cannot log in to then cross enroll. So when they go to that authentication page, their home college is not listed there. However, Brittany brought up a good point. Could we say something about that on that page? Because right now our page just says if you've previously attended a CCC, or if you're a CSU or UC or other four-year institution, or you don't have a current home college, then click here to apply. Whereas we should also say, or if you're one of those six, coming from one of
Definitely.
these institutions, then you're going to need to apply.
That's a
And that,
great point.
yeah,
Great
because
point.
I know you get that question on support quite a bit.
We do students that are always encouraging us, please get this college live. We would like to see them in the drop down. And we say, we're working on it. So we can definitely
Yeah.
make a note for those students. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Anything else from chat? Okay, we're good for that right now. Okay. Again, we'll send these links and slides for this kind of information that we just reviewed. It's also already available on cvc.edu, so feel free to explore those. But what we are going to move to next is actually looking into the administrator dashboard and looking through both enrollments as well as that term transcript report. So as a review, I want to make sure that we can review how you can still see the students that are registered into courses at your college, whether you're a home college, teaching college, you can see your students going out or students coming in through that enrollments tab. And then we'll dive into the term transcript report. So this is our test environment again. So for those of you that have administrator credentials and have maybe attended other trainings or again are recently implemented, you should be fairly familiar with this. However, again, for transcripts, the two we want to focus on would be enrollments and then that term transcript report. So for enrollments, what you can do to essentially get a report of students, maybe you're a manual college, maybe you're curious about the students that will need transcripts or the students that will be coming in from your or coming to your home college that will need transcripts processed and evaluated, you can search here. So what we want to do, again, the final status for students is validated and registered. If you need a review of that, there's a legend here that you can review all of the student statuses. Validated and registered, you would select whether you're kind of looking for the perspective of are my students coming in, are my students going out to other colleges? But for example, if we wanted to see the students that were validated and registered at Mission College, they were recently implemented for fall 2025. There's 6 enrollments. Again, this is our test environment. So what we could do is then download that CSV and get all of the student and course information that you would need to then either send the transcript, check on receiving the transcript, but this information is always available to you as a college administrator in that enrollment details report. So we didn't remove any access from that. That is all still available, even if you are an automated transcript college or you're a manual transcript college, you can still go in and access this student information here. All right, now to go into our term transcript report, I'm going to navigate back to our guide here. So this is a guide that again is available on our website, but we are going to walk through it. We don't have great test data in our test environment for transcripts. So we're going to walk through this guide and then we're going to turn over for questions and other parts of the student view, the parchment view, anything we may want to include there. So again, a term transcript report, we highlighted where you can find that in the admin dashboard. But now what you will see, I will zoom up on these, apologies. In that term transcript request, you will see where that you can select the teaching institution as well as the term. So if we select Santa Monica College, for example, this will pop up and say, oh, reminder that they are a manual transcript processing college. They are manually sending these transcripts for students. Now, again, you can then go search specifically for a student, for a course, and filter down even farther. But if you were to select filter, you could see all of the students at your teaching institution or the teaching institution you're searching for those students that will need manual transcripts sent and processed. However, if you selected a college, oh, Mike,
Quick
please.
request. Can we
Yes,
enlarge these pictures a little bit? Just
yes, we can. They're a little blurry. In structure, this is an instructure document. Is this is it?
that's
I
fair.
can't clarify it. Is that better?
That's not
Okay,
fair
great.
though.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Let's do that. Okay. All right. So again, looking at this for our manual transcript processing, this says Santa Monica College here for the teaching institution. So they would be sending transcripts manually in this example. They could download a report of students there if needed. Again, there's no students. We haven't selected that filter option. But here for El Camino, they are automatically processing those transcripts. So if you were to select El Camino, it would remind you, okay, they're going to send those automatically. You could still filter for students for term to actually see a report of students if you needed to do that. However, that's where those differences in those colleges are going to appear. And here's an example of what that report would look like for a manual transcript processing college. Hartnell in this case was the example. But now what I want to review are some of the statuses that you will see. Many of you have already been using this term transcript report, or you have had questions about it, or you have seen it, like I said previously. So what we want to review are the student statuses that you will see. Now, the status of the student does depend on whether the college is manual or automatic. Okay, so here, if a transcript is not started, that means that nothing has started with that student. For automated transcript sending, nothing has happened yet because that request has not been initiated. It hasn't been 3 weeks after the end of the course. For manual transcript, not started means that that manual college has not sent those transcripts, right? But as soon as our manual colleges do send those transcripts, we are asking them to go in and update the dashboard to let us know that those transcripts were sent. Our automatic colleges do not need to do that because, again, it's being automatically sent through Parchment, who can then update our dashboard automatically, letting us know. So that means that the statuses of the students might look a little different. So requested means for this is only for our automated colleges. If a transcript request says requested, and we will look at a view of this of what it looks like in the dashboard, that is unique to, again, our automated colleges, and it means that there's no further action needed and that transcript has been sent requested. That, again, final status for the automated colleges. The sent status applies to our manual colleges. So colleges that still need to go into the dashboard and let our team know that they did send those transcripts. I'm sure that, us reaching out for every individual transcript, was this sent? Was this sent? Was this sent? It's a lot easier for your team to go in and mark those if you are one of our manual sending colleges, to go in and mark those as sent, not just for our team, but for all of our support teams that may be helping the student, another college may be helping the student. They can go in and say, oh, yep, that transcript was sent. So we need to see if it was maybe not processed at the home college or if there's some other error. So again, showing Hartnell here, where they're showing up as a manual transcript processing. Again, it's all test here. You can see that some of them have not been started and some of them have been sent. So that means that Hartnell College went into that student, that view, and marked that transcript as sent for that student record. And where that looks like, again, we select view, manually marking it as sent. It's going to take you to the student details page, which we've seen before in the enrollment report. And you'll scroll down to the piece that looks like this, transcript request details. So again, we saw this in the dashboard. It was not started. This was for Hartnell College and they were manual. This was for test in spring 2025. But if I was an administrator for Hartnell College and I knew I sent this transcript along with maybe 15 others, I go in and just hit this button and say mark transcript as sent. That will keep other colleges as well as the CVC Exchange support team from kind of bombarding you with questions about, was this sent? Has this been processed? We still will have follow-up. Again, where this is a heavy lift for a lot of colleges, whether they're manual or automatic. So we're always following up and making sure that the process went as it should and that students aren't missing that data. But it was really, really helpful if our colleges that are still manual or not using parchment can go in and mark them as sent for us. Um, and then from there, marking that as sent, it will update as sent. So then when we're pulling that report, and when we're filtering by student status, when we're looking at the student details page, we can then see what that looks like. So I wanted to pause there. That was a quick kind of rush through the student view, but we can go back to these certain photos. Again, this is already available to you on our CVC pages as well, so you can view this at any time. But the next piece is kind of going into the parchment transcript services side. So I wanted to pause, turn it over for questions, and then see if maybe Courtney is here and wanted to dive into this component at all. Are there questions that we should touch base on at all, Mike?
Yes, there are.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's
So
scroll back to the
I
top
think there's
here.
a couple,
Fantastic.
that I want to address. So one is Banner SAS. Mitchell had a question about that. So there is an incompatibility you may have heard about, and then I'll let Courtney answer this around for Banner SAS. There's an API that allows any transcript provider to really request a transcript from Banner, and the incompatibility we've been running into is that right now you have to specify what kind of transcript you want, and whether it's or what format, I should say, whether it's a PDF or an XML data. Illusion did commit to releasing a new version of that API that allows it to be both. So it doesn't have to be an either or, it can be a both and but that is scheduled, I think, for the spring, unless Courtney, you've heard otherwise. I know there was ongoing work around getting that working for Banner SAS.
Yeah. So you are correct in that it's always kind of been one or the other. Parchment was hoping for a solution that would allow us to get both the PDF and the data version back when we request that transcript. We are not quite there yet, but we are. Parchment has relaxed their stance on our demand that Aleutian be able to give us both. And we are in the process of, for the first time, trying to implement getting that XML data back from Aleutian, or with the Aleutian calls, I should say. So we aren't there quite yet, but we are hoping to be there very soon. And we don't have a ton of schools that have already moved to Banner, but certainly would circle back with them and then hopefully have something in place as more folks do start to move to Banner SAS, and be able to alleviate that concern.
Perfect. And so really there's going to be a resolution to
Mitchell,
your
I
question.
saw your note. Yes,
Yeah.
you're the top of the list. We just had that conversation about Santa Rosa the other day.
Parchment's going to make it work, whether Aleutian makes that change or not. But Aleutian, we've been reassured on a number of occasions that they are going to release that to where it works the way it used to work, which was you just made an API request and it said, here's both formats, so you didn't have to specify. So that was question one. One question I definitely want to kind of cover, Courtney, is around there's at least one district. There might be more because I think ABC might be in that group. But there's at least one district where the course might end, let's say October 16th for a fall first 8 week session. But grades are actually not due until the end of the full term for those courses. So what I'm thinking is we need to move that to a manual process, right? And then trigger those manually at the end of the full term versus an automatic, which we'll always do 3 weeks at the end of course, right? We don't have a way to say automatic, but 3 weeks after end of term. Or do we? Made you think.
Yeah, you've caught me thinking. Let's take down those school names. I need to think about how we do that. I don't want to end up in a scenario where then they have to create all of those orders manually.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's make sure we take down those names, and I will have some conversations. We'll figure something out.
Yeah. Yes. That sounds great. I know exactly the district. So I'll take that down. Let's see here. There's a couple other good questions in here. Are transcripts required to be evaluated immediately, or I should say at all, required to be evaluated at all? Or is that like a recommendation, suggestion? So this is one we get a lot. And I hear the response is often the same of, hey, we get a lot of transcripts from a lot of different people. And we don't always know or have the bandwidth, to process all of them. And so a lot of times we don't. So we're waiting kind of for some other trigger to initiate a transcript evaluation to go through and kind of like a degree audit or prerequisite clearance request or something. And that's completely fair and understandable. I think the where it gets weird with cross enroll transcripts is that the student may have received financial aid for a cross enrollment, in which case they absolutely need that transcript evaluated. And I don't think there is a SAP clearance form at most colleges, because the assumption is, well, if you're getting financial aid, you're taking the class with us. And now here's this scenario where you could be getting financial aid for a class they're not taking with you, and that transcript is going to be all important for SAP clearance. So that could be a business process that colleges might adopt to say we'll add a SAP clearance request form if students want to submit. It is going to be tricky though, because you've got a lot of students who might cross enroll, and some of them might be aware of that form and some might not. And so that's why we strongly recommend /require that at a minimum you evaluate the transcripts for the students who have received financial aid, which you can see from the dashboard, or at least requested financial aid currently. So that's one way to do it, to try and trim that number down. But a lot of times we're just saying, hey, if you could please evaluate all the cross-enrolled student transcripts, regardless of whether they request or not. For that, we've had a lot of students say, hey, you know, I took a class in the fall, English 101, and I was planning to take English 102 at my college, actually in the spring. And so I took the 101 class somewhere else through CVC, and then I went to take the 102 class in spring and couldn't take it because it said I hadn't met the prereq. And they're like, but I did meet the prereq. I took it somewhere else, you know. And so it's like, yeah, but that transcript hasn't been evaluated yet. So it's probably sitting in queue, so you can't sign up for that class until it gets evaluated. So there's a number of scenarios that start to pop up where a student cross enrolls, has that transcript delivered back to the home college, and then is expecting that credit to just appear because the transcript's delivered automatically, so they're expecting that transcript or that credit to appear automatically, and it doesn't because it depends on the evaluation. So we are trying to figure out ways to trigger those maybe a little better, at least trigger a prompt to the homeschool administrators without creating a bunch of white noise email notifications saying, hey, this student has a transcript now, and this student has a transcript now. Why don't you evaluate it? So, but the best way is to do this report that McKinsey is showing. It's just to go in, pull a report, who cross-enrolled and finished. And so by that, we mean they're still in that validated and registered state. Obviously, you know, there's going to be a lot of students who cross-enrolled, maybe dropped out early, but whoever's in that finished or, you know, still validated and registered state, those students did complete the class. You probably have a transcript for them because we've triggered it automatically, unless they're coming from one of the other colleges where we can't. So, so that's kind of the best case recommendation. I know that's difficult. I know this is me just going on my little soapbox here, but I know I've talked about this with the financial aid teams. And I think it was Mike Deere from Miracosta had said, you know, we just weren't set up the same way that some of the CSUs and UCs are set up to process transcripts automatically and easily. It's a manual process and it's very time consuming. And we don't have the bandwidth or the staff to support that. I wish we did. And so we recognize that, you know, that the community colleges kind of fall into a different tier than maybe a CSU or a UC, where they're like, sure, send us the e-transcript. That just goes right in. We don't have to touch it. So we recognize that, but that's why we're trying to find ways to make it easier for you to be a little more precise. Well, which transcripts do we evaluate? Let's just pay attention to the ones we definitely know are tied to financial aid, because that absolutely has to be evaluated. So all that
And
to
And our
say,
team does send reminders to Mike's point. We are not sending pings, hey, this student has a transcript now, the student has a transcript now, but at the end of every term, we try to send reminders to our teaching colleges, automatic and manual, as well as our home colleges, to say, hey, when those transcripts are sent to you, please evaluate them as quickly as possible, knowing your bandwidth. But students ask us what, you know, where their transcript is. And so unfortunately, we have to say, hey, you know, I believe it's been sent to your home college, please contact them. So if we could help support that in any way, but yeah, just wanted to add to Mike that our team does try to preemptively outreach with that information.
yeah, and that ties into another comment from chat.
Mm,
Brittany brought up,
mm,
oh, hey, have we looked at, you know, bringing the student's grade from the teaching college back into the home college student record?
mm.
We have. The problem is there's really not an artifact in the home college that we could add that grade to, because there's not like an in progress class in the home college sys that we could then just go say, okay, well, you had this kind of in progress uh, you know, class registration on the student record, and now they just need, what's the final grade for that? If that was the
Have the
case,
record.
yeah, we definitely could. You know, if that was the case, we could pull that and send it and actually append it to the existing registration. There is an API for that. So, but because there's not the current registration to tie it to, that's where we're a little hamstrung there. great question. And Mitchell, yes,
There
you're
was
right. This would be easier if we were all on the same ERP. So,
There was one question before that as well that I wanted to quickly
oh,
know, just about admin access. And I apologize for not mentioning that before. But yes, if you are a home college or a teaching college and you're somebody that needs access to this enrollments or that term transcript report, you can absolutely have access for that. So either your account manager can set that up for you at your home college, or you can email our team and we can help you set up an account. But we can definitely give you access to that if that's the department that you work in. And again, our financial aid folks are often the people that need access to this and vice versa. So we're happy to help assist with that. Great questions and great explanations on those, Mike. Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Brittany brought up a good point as well that SAP actually is required to be run on any attempt. So we do send,
Oh, okay.
so
Okay.
not just the
Yeah.
classes that they had financial aid for, but any class a student was enrolled in. So so that's an excellent point. How are they doing academically, regardless of whether they were getting aid for those units. And that's another use case for why every transcript really we need those evaluated for any cross enrollments for any student, because there's just all these scenarios where it's like, well, that could go to a number of things that student needs, or the processes that college might need. So evaluation is critical. I think there was one more I missed, and then I'll jump over to maybe I
And
got them all.
Q&A. You may have gotten them all.
Yeah.
We still do have plenty of enough time, but again, yeah, just I was going to dive into the parchment kind of side for our automated colleges. Courtney, if you wanted to add anything to that, well, we can walk through that. But Mike, is there other things that you wanted to address first before we do that?
There was one that came up from Maria around for the manual transcript processing against the list we produced in Lucian colleague. Is there a way to mark all of them all from a semester as sent once we have sent the transcripts instead of individually? So I think that was something we talked about early on, right, Courtney, where it'd
Mhm.
be great to do a select all and just be like, yeah, I took care of all of these. Is that still kind of in the works or being evaluated?
It's still being evaluated. It's something on our list that we definitely think would make sense to do. Just make things a little bit easier for everyone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's some
Great
big
question.
institutions out there that still do everything manually, right? Like, so they have to go through item by item and select each of those orders as filled. So they would love it. Okay. I think that was the last one from chat. And then
Okay.
and then,
The Q&A. Yeah, the
yeah.
Q&A, there was one about being logged into the admin dashboard, the term transcript report, set the teaching institution as my college, but can't change it to another college. Correct. So in the term transcript request report, you're only going to be able to select your institution from here. However, if you want to, if you're just going in to look at a student status, you should be able to enter the student status here or in the enrollments dashboard here. So if you move over to enrollments, you can search for the student, select your home college or what the teaching college, and then you can find the student and find their transcript details. This one may not have one.
And
In
that
my
was
test
something else
environment,
we
please,
looked
yeah,
at, Courtney, right? Because I think Mackenzie, you brought that up early on of like, hey, isn't this report going to get used by home colleges
right.
to look for, well, who should we be
Where
getting
the
transcript
where it's
for? Where is it at in processing and so on?
hmm
I think we're
Yeah, there's a
still,
few other enhancements too that they're still looking at to get some more information onto that report to make things a
yeah.
little bit easier. So you've got a little bit more complete student info, not just, an ID and where to send it, but the information
That's
that you'll
great.
actually need to to request that transcript. So yeah, there are still some
That's great.
enhancements being looked at for this process. Um, and
And
as
no,
always,
that's
Parchment likes to hear
fantastic.
your
Yes.
feedback, so please let us know.
Yes, yes, and that's why we do these trainings. That's why we, certainly invite Courtney and invite that feedback, because this is a really cool product change that we were able to make, where we're able to do this for students. But sometimes there are little things that we can make easier, certainly. So, but again, if you wanted to go search for that specific student, let's say you are looking at this test student, you were able to search for them in the enrollment details. You could say, oh, yep, Hartnell has not gone in and marked this transcript as sent. However, that may or may not mean that that transcript has been sent. Maybe Hartnell just didn't go in and mark that transcript as sent in the exchange, but maybe they did send it to your institution. You're welcome to check here, but we do remind, again, our manual colleges to go in and mark those. So you all at other institutions can then go in and see that student status. Great question. Great question.
There's a good question from Robin
Yes.
around, is Parchment charging the sending for the transcripts that are sent on an institution's behalf? Robin, that was the first question we addressed with Parchment of this cannot cost colleges to do this. And the old process definitely did cost some colleges because they're like, look, we're not directly integrated with Zap or eTranscript California, so we have to use Parchment to generate these orders. That costs processing fees. That's a barrier to adoption. So the first thing we set out was to say this has got to be cost-free to institutions, and it is. So that cost just comes back to CVC for processing cross-enrollment transcripts.
And if I could
Absolutely.
elaborate on that just a little bit. So Mike is correct. All of the fees are charged to CVC. To make sure that that is always the case, we have created a separate transcript product within your Parchment interface that specifically states it's a cross-enrollment transcript. And just by the nature of the way that we have built the connection from the exchange to Parchment, these requests will always be that cross-enrollment transcript product. They will never be charged to the college. And then the other piece of it was, not all, but many of our California community colleges offer the free transcripts through their Parchment storefront. And by setting up this separate product type, we were able to ensure that these would never count against your learners 2 free copies. So if that is something that we do, they continue to get those 2 free transcripts. This doesn't count against those.
Can't clap hard enough at that. Yeah. And that's where this is shown here, Courtney. I don't know, again, if that's helpful to see, but that credential type, or they can go in on that Parchment side in these guides and see that. I don't know if that's helpful. Yeah.
Yes, for those of you that use
Great.
Parchment, you can search for these orders. They will show up in your transcript services, screens, and interfaces. Generally speaking, they're going to filter right through pretty quickly the way normal requests do without anybody even noticing they're there. But whether you've got Robo Registrar, or if we've got an API integration, or you're using like our banner connector, whatever it might be, those orders are going to get placed, and Parchment is going to do what Parchment does with every other order. So they're going to get checked. We're going to look to see if they've got a record. Can we send the transcript? If for some reason something does come up and the name that they've given us on the exchange doesn't match what's in your SIS, or the date of birth that they gave on the exchange for whatever reason doesn't match, those orders will go into the same, problem or hold statuses, so that you can review, and just like you would any other order, determine if that is, valid information, update it and go ahead and process, or if there is additional information that needs to be verified. But generally speaking, these come in, the automation does its thing, and those transcripts are gone. But with having that separate product, you are able to, in the history tab, be able to come and search for those specific orders. But you would be able to use any of your other filters as well, search by name, student ID, things like that, and these requests will show up for you there as well.
Fantastic.
Another
Yeah, Mike.
great question from Mitchell. I feel like, Mitchell, we gotta get you a badge or something, because you always bring the good questions. It's sometimes the heat, like was it Trent Krim from Ted Lasso? And like, I know if I got a question from Mitchell, it's gonna be a good one. So Mitchell was asking, is it eTranscript, where does eTranscript California fit into all this? And I think one thing I want to say is eTranscript California still has a very prominent role in the state, especially when students are transferring out to a CSU or a UC. That's still the avenue that those colleges tend to, or universities tend to prefer to receive transcripts or e-transcripts via Zap. they're also still being used, or it's also still being used for sending through for the exchange students as well. So if it depends if the home college is set up to as a receive preference, and this I'll kick it to you here, Courtney, to kind of clarify this. But if the home college is set up to say, hey, I want to, get e-transcripts from or through Zap, Parchment might be generating these orders from the teaching college, but they will deliver them via Zap at the home college if the home college has that configured and turned on. So that's still a pretty prominent role. Now, if the home college says, you know what, I need PDFs or something else, then that's how they're going to get delivered. So, but that's just wanted to clarify, Zap is still kind of the way that we're using to transfer this data around the system where it's enabled. Courtney, if you want to add or clarify anything I said.
Nope, yeah, you've got it exactly right. We still look at our sending schools and how they're able to send, and we compare that to the receiving institution and what we know within Parchment we are able to deliver to them, and all of that matching still just automatically takes place. So if you've received, from a certain school as PDFs or Zap, you would expect to continue to do so.
I could spend a long time talking about how we got on this journey with Parchment because, I think when we started this, we were like, hey, everybody's got to be a Zap receiving college, e-transcript sending and receiving. And immediately we got some pretty strong feedback right out of the gate from A&R teams who were like, yeah, we're not actually set up to send via Transcript California. Like our integration is totally through Parchment. So if we're going to do that, if we're going to use that current integration, it's going to cost us. So that was problem number one. Other colleges were like, well, I am set up to send, but I actually don't like receiving, and so now I gotta figure out another inbox to like where to receive transcripts. This would be a whole lot easier if you could just kind of leverage my existing infrastructure for how I deliver and receive transcripts. And so that's when we started talking with Parchment, like, how do most colleges send and receive transcripts with your system, and how could we do that to where it doesn't cost them to send and receive for cross-enrolled students? So I'm glad you brought this
And
up, Mitch, because we're like, this is a problem that hit us right out of the gate when we were doing cross-enrollment.
well, and again, as a reminder, Parchment is also the vendor who runs the cross enrollment platform. Started as Quotely, acquired by Parchment, who's acquired by Instructure. So it was a really nice tie-in for Parchment to say we can actually look at these transcripts. We're in here looking and running these cross enrollment platforms. So there's a pretty easy tie-in there, which leads to a question that popped up in the chat, Mike, about National Student Clearinghouse and plans for maybe other transcript vendors, or why Parchment. So I don't know if you or Courtney want to dive into that one.
I can take that one. It was kind of it was not intentional, but Parchment was working with the original vendor partner that CVC had for cross enrollment, which was Quotely Inc. So if you remember those days, and I think it's still on some of our sites, probably there's a Quotely Inc. banner up there, and that was the front end or the website, the user interface that everyone saw for the cross enrollment for Exchange. And that was acquired by Parchment, I think, what, going on 3 years ago, right, Courtney, or 2 years?
Yeah, early part of 2023.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was just kind of like a whirlwind event because Parchment acquired Quotely, our primary cross enrollment vendor partner, and then Parchment was in turn acquired by Instructure, our other primary vendor partner in the state. So now Parchment is in Instructure product. So that was how it became. We didn't necessarily try and reach out and favor one vendor or the other, but it was a fortuitous event that kind of came upon us where we're like, it just so happens Parchment also manages, was it 105 colleges in the state?
I was going to say it's a majority of our institutions as well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it worked out very well for the exchange and kind of
Mhm.
building this in to have a transcript provider company acquire the cross enrollment platform that happened to need transcripts to be sent and received. So
Great questions. Yeah, those are great questions. And yeah, we've been able to do a lot of this because of, additional support. And Courtney, want to shout out Courtney as well, who's our our kind of representative and vendor partner for transcripts for the CVC Exchange. So I'm really thankful to have Courtney's work in getting that done. And of course, Mike and Donna on the design and product. So it was a really great lift. Of course, we are always looking for feedback as well. So I do want to just kind of get through a few more links, but then any remaining time can be for questions as well. We are about 10 minutes. So these are a couple additional links I just wanted to share for students. So again, we kind of showed some administrator pages. Please don't go in and show students that matrix for whatever reason that I had up on my screen. There's no reason to do that. But for students, they can navigate, again, if you go to our homepage, cvc.edu, transcripts is right there on the top. They can select here and go through and read about our process, when they can expect their transcript, where can they find their teaching sys ID. But the other question we get from students, and again, a reminder here to this group, is that while the CVC Exchange is sending transcripts at the end of the term, whether it's manual, automatic, that is back to the student's home college. If that student is planning to transfer to another institution, like a four-year institution, they still have to request official transcripts from any college that they've attended. That process is not controlled by the CVC, that's controlled by how transcripts are essentially sent. So what we do is we give students the link to then go request official transcripts from all of our colleges here. If you navigate to this link, your page is outdated, you want a different link here, you can always let our support team know, we can get this updated. But we direct students here to say, hey, if you need that official transcript, you have to work to actually go in and send that through that college and directly send to the institution you're transferring to. So those are the two links for students to kind of dive in to that. Wanted to share that. And then again, you can share that too and with your students as well. If you have counselors or other folks that are working with those students, refer them to that website. The other reason we refer them to that website is for support resources. So on our website, as students are searching for courses, they have the ability to click on support and submit a support ticket. We also, in the course search and student dashboard area, have chat available to students and administrators that are on that page. And then as well, as always, support@cvc.edu. For administrators, any transcript questions, send a ticket to us. That opens a ticket. It's really me, Mike, and Andrea like overseeing these tickets. You are getting a hold of us directly, but we just want to make sure we're tracking it. So if we see a number of colleges have a certain issue with transcripts, we then know we can, make that product change or, talk to certain folks about getting that updated. So any feedback that you have, any questions, account setup, support@cvc.edu. But then these are all the other great resources available, students on the right, administrators here on the left. So I just wanted to shout that out as well and pause there for questions, other support items, or Mike or Courtney, if you wanted to add other components. Okay. Oh, Mike, you're muted if you're sharing anything.
sorry, one thing I'm typing out, but I'll share here as well, is our ability to integrate with any other transcript providers to help with the manual processing. Unfortunately, we don't have that capability because for a number of reasons. One, that requires integration really with the platform to identify who needs a transcript and when. And because Parchment manages that platform, they have that capability or integration, but it's part of that product that they manage. So there's really no way for another transcript provider to integrate and like do the same thing. The other issue is also, I think, permissions around that third-party request, because now it's initiating on behalf of, or you're initiating the transcript. The student gives us permission to do that on their consent form at the beginning, which you saw on the demo. But you're really initiating as a third party because you're saying, I need a transcript to go from here to here for this student, but I'm none of those people. I am the exchange, I'm not the student, and I'm not either of those institutions. So that has another kind of layer of data privacy and security, which Parchment can help us navigate since they manage the platform itself. but unfortunately other vendors cannot. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Mike. That is really helpful. And I wanted to, oh, sorry, Courtney, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Okay, just wanted to make
No,
sure you,
all good.
okay, you were unmuted. I just didn't know. My apologies on that.
Sorry.
No. I just wanted to also shout out Parchment for creating this, where they did still add an option for colleges that are using other vendors or doing manual processes to still go in and be able to track this through the exchange. That was something that we were really mindful of. It wasn't a, you have to use Parchment if you want anything to do with the exchange. It was a, how can we build this so it's accessible to what all of our colleges are doing? It's just so happens, like Mike said, 90% or 85% of our community colleges are already using Parchment. So we appreciate that build and being able to track those manual ones, but yeah, just a little bit heavier lift. Better once we have the select all option. I think that was a great point as well. So we'll take that feedback. Okay. The slide here that I navigated to just in our last few minutes is our link to our training page for our administrators. This is again on our cvc.edu homepage, where you can access all of our administrator resources. And this is where we list all of our trainings. So we have access to previous recordings and slides, and this transcript training will be here as well. And then in any future trainings that we have, we're going to try to do sessions like this, or we try to do sessions like this once a term, now that we have the enrollments that we do and the implementations done that we do. So colleges can come and learn about new product updates or things that they may have questions about for all parts of the exchange. So please feel free to access these recording slides in future trainings. And then I think that's all that we have. I'll show that support email again in our last few minutes. But Courtney, Mike, any final thoughts on our transcript training today? Great.
Thank you all for
Awesome.
attending. We appreciate this. I mean, we couldn't do anything without you all. So when we're sitting here talking about transcripts, we're like, yeah, it's really all the people on this call who are actually doing all the work associated with that. So we're hoping that we can make this a little bit easier though with this automation, because before that, teaching colleges, as Mackenzie pointed out, they did have to do a lot of manual work just to generate the transcripts. So at least that came off your plates. But thank you for all the work you continue to do for the students on the receiving side and evaluating those transcripts.
Absolutely. Could not have said that better. Well, thank you all so much, like I said, for attending. Thank you, Courtney and Mike, for joining for those questions as well. We will post this recording, like I said, on that training page. And again, have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for all you do. Thank you.